The rain had stopped long ago. Now the sky was wrapped in a dull gray blanket of clouds, as if someone, tired and weary, had lain down to rest over the city. The name of that old city was Sonamuri. The name itself sounded golden and bright, but in truth, there was nothing shiny about it. The streets were covered in mud, shop doors creaked open with tired groans, and people walked slowly, as if they wanted to make even time itself feel exhausted. Once this city had a king. His name was Raja Dhrubendra Malla. People said he was a man of strict routine, a king who ate, slept, and even watched the rain at the same time every day, like the steady ticking of a clock. His palace no longer exists. Only a half-broken staircase remains, a few crumbling bricks, and a pair of crows that perch on the ruined doorway every morning, calling out, "Caw, caw." They say those crows were once the palace guards, but no one really knows if that's true. No one even remembers those days anymore. The history of Sonamuri moves slowly. Just as dust settles quietly on an old table, the city itself has settled into the pages of time. Here, people walk softly, speak in hushed tones, as if afraid that any loud sound might wake the sleeping past. Once, there was a river here. Radha River, they called it. It is long dried up, but along its banks still stand some old houses, their curtains swaying in the wind as though someone still lives inside. Perhaps someone does. Perhaps history never truly dies, it only sleeps. At night, when the city falls silent, an odd scent drifts through the air. The smell of wet wood, old lime and mortar, and damp earth. It feels as if the soil itself wants to whisper the stories of long ago. And then suddenly, a voice, an old man's voice, is heard saying, "This city was once as golden as its name." But no one listens. Everyone is asleep. For nowadays, no one cares about history anymore. Only silent time remains and a few fading notes of an old, forgotten song.
Part 2. The Clock of the Sleeping King. The morning came slowly to Sonamuri, not with sunlight, but with a pale, tired glow that seemed to seep out of the clouds. Dew clung to the crooked roofs, and the sound of distant bells, somewhere near the old temple, echoed faintly through the mist. No one knew who still rang those bells. Perhaps no one did. Perhaps the wind had learned to do it in memory of the past. Beyond the marketplace there stood a forgotten stone arch. It was said that once the king himself used to pass under it on his way to the river. The carvings on it were fading now, angels with broken wings, flowers without petals, and a clock etched into the very top of the arch. The clock had no hands. Somehow, that felt right. People said that Raja Dhrubendra Malla was obsessed with time. He believed that a kingdom that lost its rhythm would soon lose its soul. Every servant in his palace had a small brass bell, and each bell was struck at the same moment every morning, the king's own way of keeping the world awake and orderly. When he walked through the corridors, you could hear the sound of his footsteps, steady, even, like the ticking of a great clock. But no one knows when that rhythm stopped. No one knows when the bells last rang. There's a tale half remembered and half invented, that says one day the king stood by his window and did not move. He looked out at the rain for hours, until even the servants stopped whispering. When they finally dared to speak, the king simply said, "Time has fallen asleep." And from that day, no bell was ever struck again. Now the ruins of his palace lie beneath vines and moss. If you stand there long enough, you might hear something. Faint, a metallic echo, like a tiny bell ringing deep underground. Or maybe it's just the sound of dripping water. No one can tell anymore. Near the dried riverbed, there is a woman who sells tea from a clay pot. She says she's lived here since her grandmother's time, and her grandmother used to see the king in her dreams, still sitting by that same window, still watching the rain, still waiting for the clock to start again. Sometimes travelers stop at her stall. They ask about the city, about its golden name. She smiles faintly and pours them tea so strong it tastes like the soil itself. And as the steam curls upward, she says in a voice like cracked porcelain, "History is patient. It never dies. It just waits for someone to listen again." Then she falls silent. Only the sound of the wind answers her, soft, distant, and tired.